Our next photographer is Terry Talbot, and if you've been on the Willie Street area or Shanks Corners in the east side of Madison, you'll recognize these images. So it's really just a fantastic story, him being around for so long and capturing our history. So without further ado, is Terry Talbot. Come up and explain.
I'd like to start off by saying thank you to Daniel for inviting me to be part of this show with two really talented photographers. I feel kind of overwhelmed to be part of what they're doing, but thank you, Daniel. It's great to be here. I did drop a bunch of words that I was going to say to you, and I kept trying to recite them, and it didn't work out well, so I'm just going to talk off the top of my head. I was born in San Francisco in 1947, and 6 weeks later moved to Jacksonville, Florida with my family, and lived there for about 6 months. And it was from then on out, through my childhood, it was moving every 6 months or so. My dad was a lineman, the guys climbed telephone poles and string electrical line, and he followed the work. So we moved from Jacksonville to Altoona, Pennsylvania, to New York, all down the East Coast, all over the country. So I never really made friends because I was always the new kid at school until we finally moved to Chicago, and we lived in a suburb northwest of Chicago, Crystal Lake, Illinois. And I still was kind of a shy kid, so I didn't really have too many friends then. And then I came to the University of Wisconsin, and everything changed. I made a lot of friends, and I was introduced to a lot of things that really captured my imagination. And one of those things was the art films that were being shown by the Wisconsin Film Societies. And in particular, I'll give you the names. There were filmmakers that I really, really loved. They were the surrealist filmmakers. René Clair, Louis Buñuel, André Breton, Man Ray, and a number of others. They were really popular on campus here. And I just loved the work they did. I loved the symbolism they used and the sort of absurd images, and it really struck me. After my first year of college here, I dropped out to work to make some more money and unfortunately got drafted and went away for a few years. But when I came back, I enrolled in the journalism school, and I took a photojournalism course, and that's where I really got my start as a photographer. And I still trace my roots all the way right back to that, not in the art school, but in the photojournalism school, where I learned how to tell stories with the camera. And I think that's still what I do with my cameras. I tell stories. I think even in the stuff I consider, like what you're looking at now, the more fine art stuff, it's still storytelling. But it goes back to those surrealist roots from the films that I would look at when I was a freshman in college. That told a different kind of story. So how I really got to start was our first class for this photojournalism course I took was to go out and take a picture of something you found interesting, and we bring it back, develop the film, make a print from it, and critique it. Well, at the time I was a musician. I had been a musician in a band after hours in the Army, and I got back to Madison. I started a group up and played here. And we started a musicians collective. So I thought about this first assignment. What did I want to take pictures of? And I thought, well, I'll take pictures of the band. That would be fun. Well, it sort of went from there. I ended up going to Whitewater. I don't know why I picked on Whitewater, but I did. I picked on them to put on a rock festival. So I put on a one-day rock festival with bands from Milwaukee and Minneapolis, Chicago, and Madison. I obviously took more than one photograph. So I took my pictures back to the class. We developed the film, we made the contact sheets, and the professor looked at me and he said, well, you're done. And I was appalled. I thought, well, there were some topless women in the photographs. I thought maybe he didn't like that or something was wrong. And I said, I'm done. He said, yeah, you've got an A in the class. And he said, don't be a writer. Don't be a writer, you should be a photographer. And I really credit Professor Fosdike. He wasn't a fancy art photographer. He was a photojournalist, but he really set me on the journey that I've been on for the rest of my life. And I really appreciate the encouragement he gave me. And throughout my whole career, I've always found people that mentored me and encouraged me along the way. It was very important. When I brought you, just so you can see it, my project, Whitewater Fest 71. It's full of, it's a great collection of photographs. There's the guy doing the pictures on the back there. I was 24 at the time, just kind of out of the Army. So I took this photojournalism course, and within a month of learning how to print photos, I started selling photos like these. And these are the actual photos that I made in 1971, 72, 73, that I sold on Library Mall for $20 out of a little orange crate that I put legs on. That's how I got my fabulous start as an art photographer. Now, and some of these images are in the show you're going to see today out in the hallway. These were done in a little dark room that I had in a closet. And then I'd take them out and wash them in the bathroom, hang them up over the bathtub and let them dry. So it was pretty humble beginnings. It's still pretty humble, actually. By the way, what we're looking at now is another genre I got into, which was SX70 photography. I got into that in the mid-1980s, and I loved SX70s. So aside from my black and white work, I started doing pictures of my neighborhood. I love my neighborhood, the Near East Side of Madison, Wisconsin. I bought my house there in 1974, still live in the same house. And I'm still taking pictures of the same neighborhood. I've been doing it for 50 years. But my neighborhood tells a story to me. And these buildings that I take pictures of around the neighborhood, they tell stories to me too. They all have a spirit within them. And it's one I think that I really appreciate and enjoy having been able to capture. That a little bit doctored, the full moon over Atwood, but that, you know, it tells a story too. It tells a story too. And the Capitol, I couldn't get away with that. My landlord, I have an art gallery on Atwood Avenue. The picture you just saw was Bob Hanson, the owner of Mr. Roberts Bar and Grill. He's also very supportive. He rents a gallery space to me for $700 a month. You can't ask for more support than that. Lots of pictures of the Capitol because it's important to us. So I'm still on this journey of doing my neighborhood, but I think the common thread that I see now is I'm still, the thing I enjoy the most as a photographer is really being a documentary photographer. I have some books out on the table outside by the band that you can look at, and they're documentary photos. Let Those Who Ride Decide. There was a biker rally back in the 80s here that the president of the CC Riders promoted. He was also president of the Better Bikers of America. He put on this Let Those Who Ride Decide. It was an anti-helmet law rally. And I have great photos of that. So that was a documentary experience that I really enjoyed doing. I worked for various magazines. I worked for Underground Papers. I worked for Kaleidoscope, Takeover, all the little papers that we had here in Madison back in the early days. And that was my photojournalism again. The latest thing I've done is some images that should be coming up fairly soon, which I really loved. It was, I call it the State Street Walk. There's a book, again, out on the table you can take a look at if you care to. But basically what I did was, I've developed the style that you see in my photography. It's called HDR, High Dynamic Range. The technique is you do multiple photographs of the same image. You're supposed to put the camera on a tripod, make sure nothing's moving, and you take, I'm a street photographer. I never use a tripod. I just bang away. That's how you get these pictures. So there are multiple images made at different exposures. You blend them together, and you get this kind of, I hate to use the word, but kind of cartoony look. They're really bright, they're really saturated, and I love them. I really do. they to me looked the way the scene that I was photographing looked to my eye. You know, when things came out of my camera, they always looked flat. I had to play with them a lot. So when I started doing HDR photography 15 years ago, I got excited about color, where I'd primarily been a black and white photographer up to that time. But my favorite project that I've done recently, I don't know how far it's going to be before we get there, but I'll talk to you about it a little bit. Using this high dynamic range as a street photographer and trying to do art at the same time, I went downtown one afternoon during the George Floyd protests. Maybe I should wait till we get there in the slideshow. But there's really not much more I can say about the images we're looking at now. I think all of you, if you live around here, you can recognize a lot of the pictures. Aubrey Gardens, I'm not a flower photographer, but if you want to do pictures of flowers, boy, we live in a beautiful community for that with our gardens. I did an HDR photo for a company that asked me to do some employee photographs, so I did them HDR. I don't know what they thought about them, they bought them. Here we got Santa Claus going by the Capitol. That was fun to do. The King Club. I'm a musician also, so a lot of pictures that I do are of places where bands play, or music and that kind of thing. But getting back to the State Street Walk, and you'll see the pictures when they finally come up in the slideshow. Stormy Monday, I call that one. It's one of my favorite pictures. Some of these photos are vintage. We're going through, the picture you just saw was the old record shop and the old guitar shops on Atwood Avenue. They aren't there anymore. A lot of the images you see on display out in the hallway are buildings that I really love that aren't going to be there after this year. You know, our community's changing, and I feel really grateful that I've had an opportunity to do my thing with these old buildings that are so much a part of the Madison that I love. And I love this town. I think it's, like I said, I traveled all over the country, and I never really landed anywhere where I felt at home until I landed here. It's a fantabulous, it's not just the buildings. It's all you folks too. It's the people that live here. It's a really unique, wonderful, and creative community. I own an art gallery now. I went from my crate to an art gallery. And I've got 24 artists in there, and they all are from the east side of town. They're all incredibly talented, and they're just a drop in the bucket. Our community has so many creative people in it, so wonderfully expressive people, that I personally feel really blessed to be part of this town, Madison, Wisconsin. It's a wonderful place. Well, I talked long enough till we got to my State Street Walk, the George Floyd. I went down there one afternoon with my camera, just took one rock up the street and back down. No tripod, just taking multiple exposures with my camera. And one thing I really love about this, I call it my ephemeral series, because if you notice closely, you can see through people. You know, maybe they're moving, you see multiple images. And to me, that sort of is saying that they're surrounded by something that's going to be there for a while. Well, some of these old buildings are coming down, but still, we're kind of temporary. We're just moving through time and through space. And I think this technique kind of captures that. And I love it. And I especially, again, in our town, we had this bad experience. George Floyd, there was a lot of controversy about it. The city was worried that people were going to be busting windows out of businesses. So they paid 100 artists money to go down there and do all these murals. And I think it's a beautiful testament to Madison, where we turned, lemons into lemonade, I guess that's what they say, isn't it? So this is really my favorite project that I've done in the last few years. And hopefully it will be enduring. None of these images are in the show here. Like I said, I have an art gallery, 2118 Atwood Avenue, and there's a lot of images you can see there that you're not going to be able to see here. I also have an online website, talbotgallery2118.com. You can go and you can see all this stuff too. There, I made it through my presentation. Thank you very much. I want to say one last word. I really want to put out a big thanks to Bill Litton for creating this facility. It's so beautiful. It's wonderful. And Daniel brings people from all over the world to have shows here. And it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Bill Linton. Thank you, Bill.
Terry, thank you for telling our story from the east side.
You're welcome.
I've been at every one of those damn places.
Good to see you.
You know the sun gonna